My name is Josh Walker. I'll walk us through the new Togal integration that we have. So for those of you who haven't seen the program before, this is DESTINI Estimator's home screen, where we're going to start our time together today. It's from a template. So templates are standard starting places that normally have things like historical fee or historical properties. They have standard fees, standard views or ways that we like to look at our estimates. They can also contain line items. The one that we're starting from today isn't going to contain any. So what we'll do is we're going to load in a drawing set. We're going to run that through Togal and then go through how we can use the takeoff that Togal generates. So if you haven't seen the program before, this is our estimate tab. This is where the line items that we add in from Togal's takeoff will be. Everything kind of from the estimate over to takeoff and dashboard can be on its own monitor. We'll keep everything on one monitor for our time together today. Our first step. So step number one is we're going to navigate to our takeoff window. So when we're in the takeoff window, we'll load in a PDF. As we brought our PDF in, step number one will be to provide that with a scale. And then now we're ready to perform takeoff on this page. So what we'll do for a quick introduction, if you haven't seen the program before, the way that takeoff will work on pages that you choose not to run Togal on or before the Togal integration, just so you know how it was functioning so that you can contrast it, is that you would go in, select a line item from your database. So for example, we'll select on wood flooring. And then as we have that line item, we would go in, we'll just do an easy takeoff for our time together today. We do takeoff with that item, then that line item would be added into our estimate. So the workflow would be we're going to perform, we're going to go through and make the clicks, and that line item would be added in. Togal is going to automate that process for us. So just for ease of use, we'll go to our second page of our PDF, we'll give it a scale, and then we'll run Togal on that. So up in the top right, there will be a Togal button. When you click on the button, it will bring forth this window. So it'll show you the pages that you can run Togal on. Currently, Togal automates the takeoff for architectural floor plans. So it will show you all the pages that you can perform Togal on. To perform Togal on a page, it has to be a floor plan. We have to have given it a scale. So what we'll do is we'll click on page 2 and then click OK. And then in approximately 40 seconds, Togal is going to perform the takeoff on this page. So what will happen is Estimator is going to send the PDF to Togal. Togal is going to run that through their machine learning and perform the takeoff on that page. Then once that takeoff is complete, that will be brought back into Estimator so that we can consume that takeoff. So it's going to automate, just like we had talked about a moment ago, all of our area takeoffs, our linear takeoffs, and all of the count items that we have on our page. So as we compare this with the workflow that we showed at the beginning, instead of having to go through and do all of the clicks for our takeoff, step one, in a production environment would be to review the takeoff that has come back from Togal. Once we review the takeoff, we'll go in, we'll select on the takeoff type that we want to use for takeoff, and we'll tie that to the corresponding line item. So here in just a second, Togal should finish running, our takeoff will be brought back, and then we'll go over how we can tie to that takeoff. So now Togal has returned its takeoff. So over on the left-hand side, we have our filter tree. So what we're going to do is, a good filter to start with when you're working with Togal is twofold. So first, we're going to use the property is mapped. So that will allow us to see what items Togal has returned that we have applied cost to. Then we're going to use a property called component name. So component name will allow us to see the individual piece that Togal has brought back. So currently, all of our Togal takeoff will be in the unmapped section. So our takeoff summary is going to show us all the takeoff that Togal has returned. So we'll use our filter tree to narrow in on the takeoff that we want to use for a particular line item. So we'll start with showers, for example. So as we click on filters, the filter controls what we see. So we can see there's 23 showers that Togal performed takeoff on. So if we were to zoom in on the takeoff, we can see Togal's placed a count item over all of our showers. So if we want to apply a line item or an assembly, which would be a group of line items to that, we'll start off with a line item. We'll search our database for the line item that we want to use. We'll select on that line item. It will appear down at the bottom. We'll select on the piece of takeoff that we want to tie it to. And on our properties tab, the program is going to show you all of the takeoff, everything that the program knows about it. So we'll drag our count over to our quantity, then we'll update our unit cost, and that line item will be added into our estimate. Once we perform takeoff on an item, it's going to move from our unmapped, meaning that there's no cost applied to it window, to our map folder. So now we can see Togal shower, all of our items have cost applied to them. If we were to go back to our estimate view, we can see the line item tied to those. So as we're going through, we can go back. We'll go back to our takeoff. We select on Togal area. It will show us all of the area takeoffs that Togal identified. So in our previous example, when we were on showers, we used all the takeoff. We did all 23 of our showers. We don't have to tie all of the takeoff to the same item. So on this example, if we just wanted to do our corridor space, what we can do is we can come in, click on our corridor, program's going to update with the variables from takeoff that it knows over on the left-hand side. We can go back to our database. We'll say for this example, we want to tie our corridor to a carpet flooring item. What we'll do is we'll drag our area over, and the program will convert that to square yards for us. We'll update the unit price and add that into our estimate. So when we did that, there's still a Togal area under unmapped for all of the items that we haven't applied cost to. So all the items except for our corridor are still there so that we can easily apply cost to them. And then a new material. So Togal area with the first 3 letters of the line item that we tied to was created. So we can always see what we applied cost to. When we're using Togal, we can also apply Togal to assemblies. So for example, we use Togal footprint. This will be our full footprint. We'll say this is our first floor. We want to tie our slab on grade assembly to it. So what we'll do is we'll go to our database. We'll select on our slab on grade assembly. So for any of those of you that are new to the program, an assembly is a group of line items that have a series of questions asked about them. So we'll select on our footprint. It's going to show us everything from that area's takeoff that it knows. So we'll drag area over to our area. We'll manually enter our thickness. And we'll drag over our perimeter as well. Then we'll go through, we'll answer a couple questions from our assembly. So we'll say we want vapor barrier. We'll select on concrete strength. And then we'll go in and select on rebar as well. So we'll go in and we're updating the unit costs in our example today. So our cost database doesn't have any cost tied to it. It would come in with your unit costs. And then we'll apply, we'll add that to our estimate as well. So it will now move to our map section showing that we have applied costs to it. So for a recap, Togal will automate the takeoff on architectural floor plans. So when we send that to Togal, Togal will perform the takeoff. That takeoff will be brought back into Estimator. Once it's brought back into Estimator, we can select all of the material or any combinations of its pieces and use those takeoff variables to tie to cost items, which are single cost items, or to a group of cost items, which is an assembly. Julie, that does it for me. Are there any questions that I can answer?
Yes, and I'm going to ask the audience to please continue to submit your questions, and we're going to get to them as quickly as possible. So the first question I have that's come in is, now this is someone who is exploring the Destiny platform. It says, I noticed you assigned the Togal takeoff items to your company database items. What if they do not have a database today?
So that's a great question. So there's 2 ways to start a database. Most likely if you don't have a database today, we have a standard database. It's the database that I use today. It contains approximately 1,800 line items. Those will all be tagged to the 16 division CSI, 48 division master format, and uniformat as well. and it'll have the 5 assemblies that I showed today. So that would be a great starting place. You could add your unit cost to it and make any modifications that you need to that database.
Awesome. Yeah, so as people get stood up on the estimator platform, building out the database is actually part of our implementation process. So you'll start to build a database as you get into the platform. The next question that we have is, can we rename the takeoff items?
Yes, you can rename the takeoff items.
Awesome. Very short and sweet. Thanks, Josh. The next one is, I know that you showed it at the beginning, but if someone joined late, but on there you have the wood flooring item that you showed before Toggle. So the question is, how is the wood flooring item from database already in the takeoff mode? If you want to talk through that just real quick of the steps that you did for that one.
Sure. So before we ran Toggle, what we did was we went to our cost database and we clicked on a line item and then chose to do takeoff with that line item. So you can either do takeoff with the cost items from your database. That's what we did at the beginning on the first page with wood flooring. So that's why it's cost associated with it. If you select on a line item and do takeoff with it, that takeoff will instantly be tied to the line item. In the Toggle workflow, Toggle will automate the takeoff of that floor plan, and then you'll select on the takeoff and then tie it to a line.
Awesome. We have a plethora of questions coming in. So the next one is, could you show how you would, for example, only select the restroom floor tile? Is it just a control click?
Sure. So as you're looking, the best way to navigate is you'll have your filter tree, and then you'll go through and say, hey, here's the item that I want to take off. So if we just wanted to select on a bathroom, you can click on it, and then we can hold Shift or Control. We can continue to click on those items. And then our takeoff, so the takeoff properties over on the left-hand side will update as you continue to click on items. So it'll go from 133 square feet up to 159 as you're clicking on the additional pieces.
Awesome. I think we have, I'm going to ask this last question. Unfortunately, it is going to be the last one we're going to be able to get to for our 15-minute webinar. Can you tie takeoff from multiple pages to one cost line item?
Yes. So we did takeoff on one page today. And so all the takeoff was from one page, but there is a switch up at the top that says summarize visible components only. So that means you just see the takeoff from this page. If you turn that off and we had takeoff on other pages, it would show you all the takeoff from across all the documents, and you could use that total quantity to tie cost to an